we're going to go over how I would SEO rank a flooring contractor in Florida. So this is going to be a complete guide. We're going to go over the Google business profile. We're going to go over the website. And all of this data that we've gathered is from over 14,000 Google business profiles, all located in Florida. And these strategies and the things I'm going to tell you are the exact things that I implement for my clients that have taken them from 10K months to 30K months. So in this, we're going to go over a 6-part roadmap where we're going to go over how to set up your Google business profile right. We're also going to go over how to optimize your Google business profile. So when we go over how to optimize it, we're going to set it up so that you're beating 90% of your competition. Then we're going to go over how to research. We're also going to talk about keywords. We're going to talk about keyword variations. We're going to go over LSI and what those are and how to use them on your page. And we're also going to talk about entities and what entities are in relation to SEO. We're then also going to go over your heading tags, your heading structure, and we're also going to touch a little bit on your on-page structure. We're going to go over your site architecture. We're going to go over how you want to set up your pages, your URLs, and then we're going to touch a little bit on your internal links. So how we know this data is the study we did. We looked over 14,000 Google business profiles of flooring contractors in Florida. And these are the exact strategies that I've used to take my clients from 10K months to 30K months. So now, when it comes to Google, when it comes to ranking your business, your website, and your Google business profile, there are these two giant ranking factors or terms or structures or what have you. So from these 14,000 profiles, what we've gotten is two kinds of relevance that make this super reliable. Is that it's topical. So it's all flooring contractors. So all of the patterns, everything that we're going to touch on is going to be in relation to flooring contractors. It's not going to be generic SEO advice that you would get from everyone else. And then we're also going to touch on geographic. So these are all real Florida local search terms and local flooring contractors. So it's going to reflect what actually ranks where your customers actually are in Florida. And what we can do is we can apply this to your city and service and see how it holds. So first thing we're going to do is for our flooring contractor, we need to set up our Google business profile right. So a Google business profile is a free storefront on Google. So two questions you need to ask yourself when you set up your Google business profile is, do you go to people to provide your service, or do people come to you for you to provide your service? Now, if you install floors, you go to people. If you're a flooring store, people come to you. So first things first, we need to get a Google business profile. It's free. You can absolutely get a Google business profile, and it's basically a free billboard from Google. So the question is, when you go to set up your Google business profile, is do people come to you for you to provide the service, or do you go to them to provide the service? So now, if people come to you, you need to show your address on your Google business profile when you go to set it up. So if you have a commercial location, or if you have a location where people come and then that you provide like a product or a service, you need to verify your address. Something else to consider is, let's say you're just starting out as a flooring contractor and you don't yet have a showroom. You can still get a Google business profile and just not show the address. But just so you know, go to get that verified address, that flooring showroom. That's going to help you rank. Having a verified address helps you rank higher than those that don't. So now here's another trick about Google business profiles. Not a lot of people tell you is that you can have multiple Google business profiles. You can absolutely have 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we don't want to be lying to Google that we don't actually have locations there. We want to be truthful. And what's awesome about Google business profiles is that around each profile, there's a 4 to 5 mile radius. And in that radius is where you will appear when people search for your search terms. And then right on the edge of that radius is when you'll notice you'll start to drop out of search. So what we can do is we can get 2 Google Business profiles, and then with that radius, we can slightly overlap it so that in between our profiles, slightly where that radius is overlapping, when someone goes to search, they will see 2 of our profiles when there's 3 profiles being listed in that search. If you ever go to search in Google and you see when there's 3 profiles, what can happen is that if they're in between both of yours, there's an instance in which 2 of your profiles can take up 3 of the of those Google Business profiles in search. And so whenever you get that set up, you're literally just going to be printing cash because you're taking up 66% of the search results for those 3 Google Business profiles. So just to recap, we want to get the free Google Business profile set up. There's no excuses. There's no reason why. And then what we want to do is that if we are a flooring contractor, right, but we're doing it out of our home, then we want to hide the address. But once we get to the point to where we can get a commercial location, that's when we want to verify the address. Now, when we get to the point we have that commercial location and then we want to expand, or we're a little bit, we need more demand, a good idea is to get that second and even third profile set up so that it's essentially a free billboard from Google to start generating you more leads. So now we're going to go into how to optimize your profile to beat 90% of your competition. We're going to touch on the name of your Google Business profile, the services listed, the description. We're going to go over attributes. We're also going to go over your photos, your hours, reviews. We're going to go into a full teardown. So now, of the 14,000 flooring contractors we analyzed in Florida, only 26% of them had their profile fully optimized. Nearly half of the flooring profiles are moderate or bare. So simply by completing our profile gets us in those top echelons and gets us ranking higher, is going to get you more leads than your competition. So this is what a done profile will look like. So it needs to have your service area listed. You need to do a real description. And when you go to fill out your description, it needs to have all 750 characters filled. You need a ton of services on your profile, and we'll go over how to do that. Then you also need to make sure your hours are filled. Do not lie about these. If you lie and say that you're a 24-hour service area or a 24-hour business and Google calls you, there is a risk of suspension. Then we need to work on getting lots of reviews. So about half of all the flooring contractors profiles in Florida's have a keyword in their name. So like as an example, what we can do is we can do Sunshine State hardwood flooring. Or we could do like a sub variation of that, right? Let's say I'm Charles Flooring, right? We want to make sure that that keyword flooring is in the business name. Or let's say you're not really fond of carpet, you'd much do like LVP or hardwood. You can absolutely do Charles Hardwood Installation. The other thing is that let's say that your business name currently doesn't have a keyword in it. What you can go do is file a do business as with the state for like $40. And then you can change the name of your profile to match that do business as name so that you can get a keyword in there. So when we went to and analyzed 14,000 of these flooring contractor businesses in Florida, 77% of them had their description filled in. So we need to be having our description filled in as well. Now, when we went and analyzed 14,000 of these Google Business profiles for flooring contractors in Florida, 5,135 of them had the service install flooring. Then we have another service here, tile work installation. We've got remodeling and repair flooring. So When we averaged out these 14,000 Google business profiles that we looked at, the average profile lists 25 services. And there was one that listed 709 different services on its profile. Now, a common thing that I see people say is that you can over optimize your profile. There's these hidden rules that govern how much to put on your profile, how much you're allowed to put on your website, the amount of your keyword frequency, as an example, people will say, or the keyword density, or the amount of times you're allowed to use your keyword. And more often than not, what we can do is we can go and search our keyword, right? So we can go and search flooring contractor, and we can find these profiles. We can find these websites that break all of these rules that are set by these people or by people that are in the SEO communities, right? And so what I harp on a lot is that what we want to do is we actually want to search in Google for our keyword and see what is actually currently ranking, not our bias or what we think should be ranking or what are ranking factors. Google is going to tell you what ranking factors are, like currently, and which ones you want to prioritize just by searching our term. Google's going to tell you because when we go to search our term, we're going to see what's currently ranking. And so we can take that information from the search results page, use it to our advantage to actually know what it takes to be currently ranking, not our biases or what we've been told by others. When you go to list these services on your Google business profile, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're listing every like flooring type, right? We want to do variations. So we want to do hardwood install as an example. We want to do hardwood repairs, hardwood refinishing, tile repairs, tile installation, tile installer. We want to use these variations and the top level keyword of the product or the service that we do because not everyone searches the same. So what can happen is that because we put these additional keyword variations, we can pick up other search terms that people aren't targeting because they are targeting just the top level keyword on their services on their Google business profile. Now, of the 14,000 Google business profiles of flooring contractors in Florida that we looked at, 29% of them have 0 services listed on their profile. And as we look through all of this data, if you list 10 services, you beat 50% of your competition. If you list 15 services, you beat 60% of your competition. And so, like, just even having a short list of services on your profile moves you up quickly. Now, after we've listed the service on our Google business profile, what we need to then do is go and write a 2 to 3 sentence description on each. When we went and analyzed 14,000 flooring contractor Google business profiles in Florida, 16% of them write any service description. So if we go on our Google business profile and we put a description in our services, we're instantly in the top 16%. So that means if we go and put a description on all of our services, we're instantly in above 84%, or we're at 84% relative to our competition. So another thing on the profile we need to be doing is we need to be filling out everything, even the attributes. Of the 14,000 flooring contractor Google business profiles we looked at in Florida, only 57% fill in the attributes. So when you go to fill out your Google business profile, we need to make sure that you're ticking off these little boxes because they count. So your payments you take, right? Do you take credit cards? Do you take checks? Do you take cash? Then you need to do the accessibility. What are your parking options? Is it free parking? If I'm in a wheelchair, can I get into your facility? Do you have wheelchair accessible parking? Service options. And What's interesting is that most people skip this when it's just simply hitting a yes, no, or a little checkbox on the profile. So next, what we need to be doing on our profile is that we need to take photos of the jobs that we complete. Of the 14,000 profiles we looked at, 94% of them had photos. So what we need to do is we need to stand out with volume and we need to push to 100 photos. So we need to take finished job photos, because what happens is that Google will go and read the photos. And when I say read, what I mean is that Google will go and look over the photos and then catalog them based on what it found in the photo. And so what this shows to us is that Google goes and looks over the photos and sees what's inside of them. And so this is an extremely important thing that we need to be doing, because it's another signal that we tell Google, like, hey, we do hardwood flooring installations. Go look at all these photos. Google's like, oh, I have a catalog full of your photos. Yeah, you do hardwood installation flooring. So when someone searches for hardwood floor or hardwood installation services near me or hardwood installer near me, we're going to make sure you're up there with them, and we're going to make sure you're ranking higher. Now, something else that photos do for your Google business profile is that I like to think of it as a billboard. It kind of sets expectations. When I was looking over the reviews of one of the profiles I manage, someone had left a review that they were a little hesitant to come and visit the facility because of the photos. And what I thought was really weird about that is I know the facility is nice. I know the owner personally, and I've seen photos on the inside of it. But because there weren't enough photos, or there wasn't enough evidence on our billboard, our Google business profile, they were a little hesitant to come. Now, in the latter half of that review, they're like, we're glad we came because it is an awesome facility. We had a great time. This just shows that we need to be setting the example. We need to set expectations on the profile with finished jobs, with finished photos of the things that we do, of our trucks, of us, to show people when they search in Google and they see our profile that we offer quality service. And not only does that, but it's going to build trust in those people so that they call your business. They're like, hey, I need a hardwood floor installed. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we're taking plenty of photos and adding them to our profile after every job. Now, the number one setting on your Google business profile is the primary category you set. If you set this wrong, you will not show up for the search terms you want to rank for. What you need to do is you need to match what your top level service is to the category you select. Your main category needs to be your number one service, and then everything below that, all your other services, need to be added as additional categories. Now, there are some other boxes or some other sections, some fields on the Google business profile nobody fills. Only 65% of the 14,000 Google business profiles that we looked at of flooring contractors in Florida list a website. Now, 97% of them have a phone number listed on there, which is great. But what we need to be doing is we need to make sure we have our website listed. And then there's an appointment link that Google lets you set. This appointment link doesn't have to point to an appointment setting software. You can literally just put your contact page or your home page in that little field on your Google business profile. So the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're listing all the social profiles we have. So all the social media profiles we've got of, like, you got Facebook, you got Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You want to make sure that you're listing your Pinterest, and then you want to make sure you're listing your LinkedIn. Every single one that you have and that Google allows needs to be on your profile. Now, another portion of the profile we need to be filling out is we need to fill out our hours, and do not lie about your hours on your profile. If you lie about your hours and Google calls, or let's say you have a physical verified address and someone's driving to your location, but you're not actually open. This is how you accumulate these random 1-star reviews for no reason. And if Google calls your profile when you say you're open and you're not open, this could risk your profile being suspended. So be truthful. List all the hours for all your days. If you're closed on a day, just list that you're closed. So now for reviews, we analyzed 14,000 Google business profiles of flooring contractors in Florida. And to beat over half of them, all you have to do is get 25 reviews. If you get to 50 reviews on your Google business profile, you're past 85% of those 14,000 Florida flooring contractors. So after every job that's done, we need to make sure that we're asking for reviews. And we also need to make sure that it's super easy for them. What we need to do is we need to send them the review link, or you need to have a QR code. We don't want them struggling to figure out how to get a review on your profile. We need to make it as seamless and easy for them as possible. What you can also do is with the review link that you send them, it will auto-populate the little window that they need to fill out. So instead of them having to click write a review, you can send them the exact URL to where when they load it up, it'll boom, pop up, and there'll be a little card there. And it's like, leave a review, and it'll have the stars, and it'll have the little section for them to write a description. So now, here's how you beat 90% of the 14,000 Google business profiles we looked at in Florida for flooring contractors. First, you need to write a business description. Remember, you need to have 750 characters listed on that description. Then we need a full list of 15 plus services on our profile. Then thirdly, we need to then go and add a description on all of those services, and that will instantly put you above 90% of those 14,000 profiles in Florida. So just a little recap on how to optimize your Google business profile. We need to make sure we have a keyword in our name, and it needs to be our real business name. We need to add a business description, so we need to fill in all 750 characters. Then we need to list 15 plus services and put a description on each one. We need to make sure that our Google business profile has the right category, attributes, it has tons of photos, and then the hours are honest. Next, we want to make sure that we're listing all of our social profiles. So YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. And then after that, we need to push to those 100 reviews. Because once we hit 50 reviews on our profile, we're already in the top 85%. Now, when we want to go to rank our website, what we need to do is we need to research first. We want to go look and see what's currently ranking and who's actually ranking first, so that we can get the data that we need to know what Google thinks are the current ranking factors for our search term in our area, right? So it's going to tell us what current ranking factors to use, and it's also going to tell us how much of each of those ranking factors we want to use. Then once we go and figure that out, we just want to average it, and then we want to be slightly better, like 5% better than our competition. And that's how you, so what we're going to do is we want to go and look at who's ranking right now in search. So we're going to study what's currently ranking. We're going to follow some of what people tell us to do to rank, but we also want to make sure that we're keeping things like relevant to our search term, because not all of what people say it takes to rank is applicable to every single area, right? And so some of the ranking title tags in Florida that we found were these right here. So we got tile and flooring installation company in Pensacola, Florida. And so what we can already see from the first title tag that we looked at is that we need to have these keywords and these services in our title tag, right? So we got jeans, floor, covering, flooring store in Pensacola and Gulf Breeze. Then we have flooring installation in Pensacola, Florida, tile, vinyl, hardwood. And so what we can see is that each one of these have, if they don't have flooring, they have floor. Well, actually, this one has both. And so what we can see from these as an example is that having that keyword and that keyword variation in your title tag helps you rank. And so this is something that we need to know so that we can apply to our site. Now, after we go look at what's currently ranking, what we can see is what is the length of content that we need on our page. So what we can do is we can go and see from the top 10 ranking pages, how much content do they have on their page? And then what we can do is we add that all up, divided by how many pages we have, and then we have the average amount of words or the average amount of content we need to have on our pages, right? And so when we went and did this for Florida for flooring contractors, we found that your target, you want to be around 1,300. And then you want 254 sentences. And the reason for this is that more often than not, a 400 page is not going to outrank a 1,500 word page. So we need to make sure that we're covering the topic fully when we go to create our content for these pages. So just a little recap. We need to study the pages already ranking. That's our blueprint. That's going to tell us what it takes to rank. Then we want to average them out. And then that's going to tell us to how much we need to beat or how much we need to put on our pages so that we beat them a little bit on each factor. Our target keyword is going to be from 1,350 to around 1,600 words per page. And what we need to make sure is that we have the depth of content covering the topic. These 400 to 500 word pages are just going to lose. They're not going to rank. So there's this keyword myth that you can only have a certain amount of keywords on your page. And what you can find more often than not is that in Google search, there are pages ranking that are all of these rules that are set. And from searching in Google, we can see how Google really understands a page by what is currently ranking from the search term we put in there. So what we need to do is go to our competition, search our keyword, right? Open up the page, and then right click view source, control F, and then we need to search the keyword and see how many times our competition is using them. And then that's the target we need to beat. We'll take the top 9 pages. We'll do the inspect. We'll do the control F. We'll look at how many times they're using the keyword on page. And then we'll take that and we'll average it out. And then that is the amount of times we need to be using the keyword on our page as well. And we also want to be slightly better than them. So multiply it by an additional 5%, so 1.05, and that's your target. Now, when we go to search in Google and we start seeing all of these different keyword variations, or we're listening to people online about SEO and they talk about the LSI, what are LSI keywords, what are entities. So what are LSI keywords and entities really? The easiest way to think about it is think about describing your service to somebody. So if I was a hardwood floor installer, right, and I came to you and you were another contractor as well, think about the conversation that you and I would be having. Think about how the different words in that conversation that you wouldn't normally have with someone that you were just like talking to about, like, let's say you were at a gas station, or let's just say you were just talking to a buddy that isn't a contractor, right? So you're talking to this buddy that's not a contractor. That conversation that you have with that person is not going to contain what are considered are these LSI keywords, right? You're not going to talk about nails. You're not going to talk about glue. You're not going to talk about LVP, hardwood, tile. You're not going to be talking about subfloor or like installation with your buddy that's not a contractor. Now, when you go to talk to your buddy that is a contractor, those are going to be the terms, the keywords, basically just the words of how you would construct a conversation or how you would talk to your buddy that is a contractor. Basically, LSI keywords are just the words you would use to talk about the topic. Now, why this matters, why LSI keywords, why entities matter, is because what we can come to find is that this is how Google understands a page, right? So Google does not read like how we read. What it does is that it will find these words like flooring, glue, nails, what have you, right? And it will measure the frequency. So every 20 words, this is just to illustrate an example. This isn't exactly how it does. Is every 20 words, how many times do these relational words to flooring appear, right? So if I'm having a conversation with someone that isn't a contractor or doesn't do flooring, then those 20 words from that conversation are not going to have the words that are relational to flooring. And so what Google will go do is, let's say it went through that conversation, those 20 words, right? It's not going to see anything about flooring. But now when it goes and through the conversation I have with that contractor, what it's going to do is it's going to find, oh, nails, flooring, installation, subflooring, right? And it's going to look at the frequency in which those words occur and co-occur. Then not only that, it's going to measure the distance. So the amount of words in between these LSI terms or entities, it's going to measure so it can get a better understanding of what is actually occurring on the page. What is the page about? And so by measuring it, the amount of times a word appears on page in relation or co-occurs with other words, it will then get a better understanding of what exactly your website or that page is about. Google doesn't have context like we do. And so as a substitute, this is how it comes to understand what your actual page is about and can get confident that your page is about flooring. Now, how to find some of these variations for free is what we can do is go into Google and we can search our keyword. When we search our keyword, Google is going to bold these relevant terms to what we've searched. And from those bolded terms, we can take that Google thinks that those bolded terms are relevant to the search. And so by doing this, it tells us that these are the words that we need on our page. Google doesn't just bold these for fun. It thinks that it's topical or it thinks that it's relevant to the search term we put in. So it's basically for free telling us what we need to be using on our page. Some examples are hardwood, tile install, flooring company, near me. So that's the list and Google hands it to you for free. Now, these are some more of the keyword variations we need to use on our flooring contractor pages. And these are the amount of times you need to use these keywords or keyword variations on your page. All of this data was taken from Florida. So what I mean by that is we went and searched in different areas, different cities in Florida for flooring contractor. And we took all that data, and this is the amount of times you need to be using these keywords on your page, right? So we need to be using flooring 147 times, floor 50 times, installation 44 times, and then laminate 36. Now, this is another list of those co-occurring words that are on currently ranking pages in Florida. And so what we need to do is we need to work these in naturally. So example is glass tile, right? Metal, family owned, operated, and then we also have got LVP. Now, with these terms, these are the terms that co-occur naturally in conversation. And so these are the LSI keywords we need to be using on our page. So now entities are basically just the nouns Google expects with the topic you're talking about, right? So as an example, we've got kitchen, bathroom, shower, tile, you got porcelain tile, glass tile, hardwood, countertops, remodeling. Now, once we have our list of keywords, we need to know where each keyword type goes. So the exact keyword you're trying to rank for needs to be in your title tag, it needs to be in your H1, and it needs to be in your meta. Then also it needs to be a few times in the body of your content, in the body content of your page. The variations need to be in your headings, your paragraphs, your lists, alt text, and your images. It needs to be everywhere, right? Your LSI words need to be sprinkled naturally throughout the copy. A big ranking factor that can help you is that by putting the keyword in your title, your meta, and a variation, then putting a variation in your H2 and H3 is a big ranking factor, and I highly recommend it. So don't focus on the exact keyword times people tell you. What you need to do is you need to be looking in search to see what is actually currently ranking. The LSI or the entities are the words you would naturally use to describe flooring. Google learns about topics from the words that are commonly used or the words that co-occur frequently in different topics. So what we can do is we can find the variations by searching our term in Google and then looking at the bolded terms, and then those are the terms we need to use on our pages. Next, you need to make sure that we're using those keyword variations on our pages, LSI words and entities across all your pages. Try to get the exact keyword in your title H1 and then get variations everywhere else. So the headings and on-page structure you need to rank your flooring contractor website in Florida. We're going to go over your title, your meta, and then we're also going to talk about your heading tags H1 through H6 with examples. We're also going to go over some HTML tag diversity, and then we're also going to talk about images a little bit. So for your title tag and meta description, your title tag needs to be 60 characters, and then also for your meta description, 164. Now, for your title, you can push it past 60 characters. There is no like hard set fast rule for your title length. Now, the keywords are alphanumeric algebra, just random combination of letters and numbers. And in that million keywords I put in the title tag, I could search in Google for a keyword in the 186,000th place of the title tag, and my page would still appear in search. So there really is no hard set rule on your title tag being 60 characters. It can be as long as you want. Now, I'm not going to recommend, and I will not recommend you making your title tag 189,000 characters, or I'm sorry, 189,000 keywords long. You can go past 60 characters. You could probably do 120 characters and get away with it. Just an easy guideline that you can apply is to keep it 60. But you can absolutely do 120. You can go 180. You can go 240. For your meta description, a common guideline as well is to have 164 characters. Now, you can do 320 or like 100, like maybe like 350. A common thing that people will do is they'll set two meta descriptions, because what can happen is that Google will ignore your meta description and it will try to find a better representation on from the content on your page. And so what you can do is you can try to influence this. So instead of it trying to take content from your page and use it as the meta description for when you go and search in Google, what you can do instead is you can just put two meta descriptions so that it can try to pick and choose between those two to try to influence that. There's no guarantee, but it is something that you can try to do. Now, below here is a ranking Florida page for a flooring contractor, and it's a great example of what to do in your title tags. So what we can see here is tile and flooring installation company in Pensacola, Florida. Now we've got a keywords. We got tile. We got flooring, which is the verb tense of floor, which is a keyword, or you can be considered a keyword variation. Then not only do you have that, you have the combination. You have flooring installation. Then you have flooring installation company. And a great thing that they have is also they have a geographic keyword in there of Pensacola, and then they have the abbreviation or the state FL. Now, here is an example of a meta description. So we've got Gene's floor covering has been serving the Gulf Coast since 1965. Visit us in Pensacola or Gulf Breeze, Florida today for carpet, hardwood, waterproof, and more. Now, this is a great example. So we got floor covering. We have also got carpet, hardwood, and waterproof, and more, which are all just keyword and keyword variations. This is just another example of a great meta description that you can use on your pages. Now, for the headings, so for the heading tags on your page, what we want to do if we're a flooring contractor is these are just examples. This isn't exactly what you have to do, but it's a great example. So we got flooring contractor in Pensacola, Florida for the H1. Then for our H2, we can see there will be a hardwood floor installation, tile and stone. For our H3, we've got engineered versus solid hardwood, and then waterproof LVP. Now, for the amount of times you want a heading tag on your page, from the search results in Florida, what we got is we want 6 H1s, we want 7 H2s, and then we want 9 H3s. Now, for the heading structure for your H4 to H6, just a little note is that nobody uses these heading tags, HTML tags, on the pages that they build. And so what is occurring because they're just hammering these and there's real no diversity in the heading tags is that when we go to use the H4, H5, and H6, that is just giving us a free, super easy ranking factor to just go and beat them instantly like that. And so I just wanted to share that because it's just like a common thing I keep seeing when I go to do these audits. All of these AI website builders are just hammering these common ranking factors, right? And so an easy way to stand out is just to use the H4, the H5, and the H6. Now, so for the heading structures for flooring contractors in Florida, what we can see is for the H4, a good one as an example is what hardwood installation costs in Pensacola. Then we also have subfloor prep and moisture testing. And then our last one, our workmanship warranty. And now for the pages we looked at, we want to do 4 H4s, at least 1 H5, and at least 1 H6. Most sites quit at H3. So what happens is that because we use an H4, a H5, and an H6, with each of these heading tags having a keyword, and then some of them having a keyword variation, you pick up 6 additional ranking factors for free by literally just including an H4, an H5, and H6. Because you have the heading tags, right? Then a ranking factor is to include a keyword variation in there. So that gives us another 3, which in total gives us 6 ranking factors just like that. Now, from the flooring contractors we looked at in Florida, their HTML tag diversity was that we need about 20 heading tags or H tags. Then we also need 35 paragraph variations. And then we also need 30 list item variations. So now when I say variations, what I mean is in between the HTML tags, like a paragraph tag, you need around 35 keyword variations in between those paragraph tags. Now, You don't need 35 keyword variations per paragraph tag. You need it just across all paragraph tags in total. So if you have 15 paragraph tags, but if some of them don't have a keyword variation in them, but you do have 35 total keyword variations across all of your paragraph tags, you're fine. And the same thing goes for your list item variations. A list item is just the list HTML tag. And so across them, you need 30 keyword variations. So as we can see, when we look at these in the H1, we've got these keyword and keyword variations. And then we also have a little bit of a geographic keyword to let Google know, hey, this is the area we serve. And to let the people that come and visit our website know that this is the area we serve. Then for our H2, we've got hardwood floor insulation. And then for H3, we've got an engineered versus solid hardwood. And so this is just showing you examples of how to structure your page to rank. So each paragraph, we want to weave in different variations and we don't want to repeat the same phrase. So an example of this is our Pensacola flooring contractors install hardwood floors, luxury vinyl planks, tile, and carpet. From wood floor refinishing to full tile installation, our flooring company handles every job. Need laminate flooring or vinyl plank on the Gulf Coast? We do that too. So as we can see here, they got flooring contractors, flooring, we've got hardwood floors. And so all of these are keywords and keyword variations of the top level keyword we're trying to rank for. And what we need to do is we need 35 variations of these in between our paragraph tags across our page. Then in our list heading, in our list HTML tags, we need 30 keyword variations across all of them. So an example right here is if you were to go and list your services and you were to use the list HTML tag, this could be a structure you could copy. So we got hardwood floor installation, engineered wood flooring, luxury vinyl plank installation. And so what we can see is that not only are these like a subset of the keyword we're trying to rank for, like flooring contractor, they've also got a little bit of a keyword variation in them because some of them are adding the verb tense of floor, right? So we got flooring. Then not only do we have that, but we also have refinishing, and then we got repair. And so those are just some examples that you can use on your pages. Now, some other things that we found from the images and alt text from the flooring contractors in Florida is that on average, they use 42 images and 33 of them have alt text. And so this is what we need to be using on our pages. So something to consider is that when you go to rank a page in Google, what you have to consider is what keyword are you trying to rank for? And why is this important? Is because that it's going to determine how you build out the page and what goes on the page. Flooring is a very visual service or a very visual product, right? So by proxy of this, what we can see is that the ranking pages have 42 images. That's not a common occurrence across all of search, right? Some terms require more content on the page. So let's think of something technical like search engine optimization. Search engine optimization pages are more than likely going to have more content on the page. They're not going to have as many images as something visual like flooring. And we can see in here for the flooring contractors in Florida, they are putting a ton more images on their page. And so because of this, that has led the images to be a ranking factor necessary to rank for flooring contractors in Florida in different cities. Now, what we also need to consider is when we go to add these images to our website, and this is across all search, is that we need to be including our keyword or the service or a product in the file name. Not only that, we also need to be adding alt text to each of our images And when it comes to alt text, just 2 to 3 sentences, a little bit about, what's in the photo, where the photo was taken, and then also you may want to include a little bit about the product used or the service you provided when you go to optimize or change the alt text in your image. Your title tag, you want around 60 characters. That's not a hard rule, it's just more of a guideline. You can absolutely make it longer than that. For your meta description, you want to be at or around 160 characters. Again, just a guideline, not a hard rule. You can absolutely do 320. In your meta description, you want to do a keyword plus a keyword variation and then a call to action. On your pages, you want to make sure you're using all 6 heading tags. Make sure we're using the H4, the H5, and the H6, and we're putting keywords in those because then that gives you an additional 6 free ranking factors. Now, for a flooring contractor in Florida, how we want to set up the site, the pages, your URLs, and links we want to be very distinct, right? So you want to have service pages, you want to have location pages, your URL structure needs to be clean. And then there's a 3-click rule that I implement on all of my client sites that any page from the home page needs to be findable in 3 clicks or less. So now, for your services, you want to have 1 page per service, and then you also want to have 1 page per area you serve. And so what you want to do is you want a hardwood floor installation service page. You also are going to want a LVP or luxury vinyl plank service page. And then for your locations, you're going to want, for your location pages, you're going to want more location variations or location keywords, right? You're going to want, as an example, Pensacola flooring, or another example is Gulf Breeze floor installation. Not only that, you also are going to want to consider to put the zip codes or some neighborhoods in that city or that area that you're talking about that you provide that service. So you could do Pensacola hardwood floor installation on your location page. Now, when it comes to setting up your site, you want to use a clean URL structure, and we want to make sure that everything is lowercase, everything is keyword based, and it comes down to having like one idea per URL. An example here is / flooring services / hardwood installation. Then down here, there's another example of service areas and then Pensacola, Florida. And now what this does is you're going to have these folders or hubs, right? So you've got your homepage, you've got your flooring services, and then for your flooring services in the URL structure, you're going to go down each of them, right? So here is hardwood installation, but then you also need luxury vinyl plank if you offer that service. You also need tile ceramic, right? You're also going to need carpet. And all of these URL structures are going to be clean, and they're going to break it down into these hubs, right? So flooring services, then the service. Then you've got your service areas, then you've got the city or the name of the area you serve. We don't want to put dates, no random numbers, or like no super deep nesting. Deep nesting is when you go like 3 or 4 forward slashes into something. You need to make sure the URL reads like a breadcrumb. Now, when you go to interlink your flooring contractor website, what we need to make sure is that we're applying the 3-click rule. So the 3-click rule is every page on your website needs to be reachable in 3 clicks. So why this is important is that Google will come to your homepage and it will crawl, right? Crawling is basically Google coming by and it will look at all the code. It will grab all the code, it will find all the URLs, and all of these URLs will go into another process. This process to start could take a couple hours or a couple days, right? Then it will go to those URLs. So this is the second page, and it will crawl all of that code on that page, right? It will gather all the URLs from that page. Then the same process will then go and crawl those pages, right? So let's say it takes 3 days. So Google finds the URLs in the first homepage, 3 days for it to come by to the second page, 3 days for it to come by to the third page. And then let's say that we have a fourth and fifth page. So we're already at 6 days. And this is because this is an example of a bad architecture of the internal linking, because it's set up to where a page links to a page links to a page, right? What we need to have is that you have these hubs. So by having these hubs, like a service hub that lists all the URLs to all the services, what happens is that instead of Google having to go through 6 pages to find that page, Google goes to your home page, Google goes to your services page, Google finds all the services. So then another example, a hub for your blogs, right? Google goes from your homepage, Google goes to the blog hub that lists all your recent blogs, to then it gets all those URLs, and then it goes and crawls those blogs. And then it instantly finds all of that information. Same thing for your location page. Now, if you don't have this, what can happen is that in that example of the 12 days for Google to come and find that URL, you can make a change to that page, and it could take longer than 12 days. Let's say it does take 12 days. It takes 12 days for Google to come by and crawl that page. That means you won't have any impact from the SEO you apply to that page in 12 days or longer. And what can also happen is that Google could abandon that page because it's so orphaned, or it's so far from the homepage that it doesn't think that it's worth coming back to crawl or even keep indexed. So it could drop that page entirely. So we want to use these hubs to flatten the site so that it's easy for Google to come by and grab all the URLs. It's easy for Google to hop from page to page to gather all the URLs and to crawl the pages to understand more what they're about. Now, keep the hubs simple. We just want them to be for links. And what is also interesting is that internal links are a ranking factor. So when we went in Florida and we searched for flooring contractor in all these major cities, what we found is that the total links on a page that correlated with ranking was 152. So what we want to do is we want to point links from our blogs and services to the page we actually want to rank. So as an example, if we wanted a location page to rank, then what we would do is we point all these external pages on our site to that one page to help it rank. But let's say instead we wanted a service page to rank. What you could do is then you have the blog and the location pages point to that service page. And then that will also help it rank because you have all of these pages all linking to that one page. So a quick recap. You want a page per service and per location. You want to make sure that you have clean keyword URLs, one idea each. And something to consider is that when you go to construct your URLs, what you need to think about is when you have these links on your page, especially in your navigation or in your footer, is that if you have a whole bunch of those, what it does is it can increase the keyword amount or the keyword density on a page if you have enough or if you have any links, right? By putting that keyword in the URL, that will count as a keyword on page for all the pages that have that URL link. So on your blog hub, if all of your blogs have keywords in them, then technically on that blog hub, you could have a couple hundred keywords. Now, that's not necessarily so that you consider, well, I don't really want to rank my blog hub, But what can happen is that if you have your location page and then you have a mega footer, so in your footer you have a whole bunch of links, and then all of those links, the URLs, have keywords in them, you can artificially inflate the amount of keywords on your page by simply just having that structure. Then you want to make sure that all your pages are within 3 clicks of the homepage. We want to make sure that we're using blog, service, and location hubs to facilitate that. We want 150 links on a page, internal page, right? We want to point them at money pages that we want to rank. And then also in the anchor text, we want to use a keyword, and we want to be slightly descriptive as well. So set up the profile right. You want service area, you want your address. Then we want to make sure that we fill in everything on our profile: services, descriptions, photos, reviews. We want to study what's ranking currently for our page, right? And so we want that 1,300 word count to 1,600 word count. We want keyword variations. We want LSI keywords. We want entities. And we don't want to exactly be keyword stuffing. We want to use those variations. Then we also want all 6 heading levels packed with variations, keyword variations. Then we want clean URLs. We want our site to be within a 3-click depth. And then we will also want those hubs and internal links. So now, if you want this built for you, your Google Business Profile plus website ranked with real data, not guesswork. I've helped local businesses scale from 10K a month to 30K a month, and